welcome to another episode of Soundless Vision Art Life. My name is Adewale Boke Jr. Please review us, rate us, give us a 5-star. Don't be a hater. Today is a continuation of Creators of Art. And today we've got a special guest. Before we bring in that special guest, we want to thank our sponsors. The Soundless Vision Podcast is brought to you by A4 Capital Consulting. Growing good business anywhere and everywhere. Let A4 Capital Consulting take your business to the next level. That's A4CapitalConsulting.com for details, y'all. That's A4CapitalConsulting.com for details, y'all. And this podcast is also brought to you by Anadel Foot and Ankle. Don't live with foot pain. Let Anadel Foot and Ankle make your feet happy again. That's AnadelCenter.com for details, y'all. That's AnadelCenter.com for details. As I said, today we got a special guest. He's a mentor to me. He's been on the show God knows how many times. Former head of the art department of Long Beach City College. He's the reason why you see this Cardiac Assassins universe is alive, because he taught me how to do what I need to do. He's an artist. He's a guitar man. He's a great surfer. And if you want a surfboard, you want to go to handyman.com, I believe. But if I'm wrong about that, he's about to correct it. Mr. Larry White, welcome to the show, sir. How you doing, sir?
Thank you.
Yes,
Very
sir.
welcome. Good to be here.
Did I get the website right? The surfboards? Because I know I want to tell people where to go.
Artisthandyman.com.
But you heard the man. Repeat that again, sir.
Artisthandyman.com.
Beautiful. So, y'all, the reason why I had Mr. White on today is because I've been doing so far. I had this series called Creators of Art. So I went from animation. Part 1 was animation, and then part 2 was another animation group, and then part 3 was like, there's a lot of abstract artists that I love and that I want to talk about, but there was 3 in particular: Pablo Picasso, Jean Basquiat, and then Frida. I just love to call her Frida. I mean, when you're that great, you should just have one name. And so I said, I'm not the expert, but I know somebody who is. How about I bring Mr. Larry White in, because he loves stuff like this. And to be honest with y'all, it's just an excuse just to have Mr. White on the show. That's just the real truth of it. So, Mr. White, sir, I wanted to put the ball in your court, and one by one, whether it's Pablo Picasso or Jean Basquiat or Frida, whoever you want to start with, but talk about these amazing legends and the art and what they've done to become made art what it is today.
Okay, well, they're really 3 very, very distinctively different artists, both in time frame and the range of and type of work that they did. Pablo Picasso was essentially the most influential artist of the 20th century, and his lifespan essentially covers 3/4 of the 20th century. He was born in 1881, and he died in 1973 at 92 years of age. He's a classic artist in the sense that he is following a Western European tradition. And there's a very clear continuing line in the development of art as you would study it in art history, Western art history, flowing from before him, Impressionists, into his era. And he is essentially, you might call him the godfather of modern art. Frida Kahlo, on the other hand, was born about 20 years after him. She was born in 1907 and died very young. She died in 1954 at 47. She's outside of the mainstream in that she was born and lived in Mexico for most of her life. And Mexico isn't part of that tradition. It just has never been a center of the progression of Western art. That's not to diminish the work of Mexican artists. It's just to say that it didn't have the influence that, say, Pablo Picasso had. You don't see artists who do work similar to Frida Kahlo, right, whereas you'll see artists who emulate Pablo Picasso. And then you have Basquiat, Jean-Pierre Basquiat, who was had no formal training, an extremely short life. He was born in 1960 and died in 1988. And his work follows in that tradition that I talk about with Pablo Picasso, but there's a difference in that Pablo was formally trained, and Basquiat was not. He was self-taught and does follow in that Western tradition. He builds from what was developed in the 60s and 70s and really takes it up a notch from where things were before him. So those are the primary differences between them. Two are within the traditional canon of Western art. One is slightly outside of it. And their influences are very, very different. Also, the type of work they did is very, very different. Picasso was starting in the late 1890s, and he's following in Impressionism, Monet, Manet, all of the great Impressionists of the era. And their primary focus was on changing the way that people see the world. And that was based on the fact that cameras had been invented. And before the turn of the century, I'm talking about 19th to 20th century, artists were essentially the means by which the real world was captured and codified. With the advent of cameras, that meant that painters and traditional artists needed to redefine how their work is seen. And that's something that Picasso has in common with Basquiat, is that they're taking the way people see art and the world and modifying it and bringing it to another level.
So basically, kind of like, did they try to, I guess, did they try to, what's the word? Not commercialize it, but make a living through what they create, I guess. Is that the best way to say it?
I don't think that's accurate at all.
No, yeah, like not as in making money, but just to let the world know, hey, look, art exists and you guys need to see it.
Yeah, I think Picasso, more than the other two, really was in a period where you needed patrons, somebody buying your work in order to maintain yourself. Frida was married to a very, very successful Mexican muralist. So it wasn't like she had to do art to support herself, and she was free to do what interested her, and if nobody bought it, it wasn't going to make any difference. Whereas with Picasso, he needed patrons to continue. Basquiat was essentially discovered and became important because of the people that said, whoa, where did this guy come from? And you know, there's something going on here. An important aspect of this is that Picasso was born in Barcelona, Spain, and he was first trained at the Barcelona, I'm trying to think of the name of School of Fine Arts,
okay,
where his father was a teacher, and he was a protege. People were amazed at the stuff he was doing as, well, actually, from the time he was 8 or 9 years old through his late teens. Then he moved to Paris, which was the center of art at that period. And Paris remained the center of Western art through till probably the late 40s, early 50s, when New York became the center of Western art. And that's one of the things that both he and Picasso have in common. They are where the new way of seeing is being developed. And they're both instrumental in those changes. Frida, on the other hand, although she did have formal education. She didn't have really an art education. She took some drawing classes, but she mainly wanted to go into medicine and science when she started school. Uh, I don't know what school she went to. Like I said, Picasso went to the School of Fine Arts in Barcelona, and then when he moved from there to Madrid, the capital of Spain, and studied at the Royal Academy, which is, in the academic tradition, very centered on European art. And then upon finishing there, he then moved to Paris, to Montmartre, a little hill where most of the artists at the time were living. It was cheap. Toulouse-Lautrec was there. Oh, geez. I can't think of another name right off the top of my head. And his work spans a really great range. He did ceramics, he did painting, he did sculpture. His styles evolved with the time, constantly pushing new ways of seeing. Frida, and also his masterpiece, of course, is La Guernica, about the Spanish Civil War and the rise of fascism in Spain. Whereas Frida, so his work had a social context to it, whereas Frida's was really, her work was almost exclusively portraiture, self-portraiture, and using herself as a means of talking about personal torment, angst, issues within the self. Basquiat's work, on the other hand, was figurative, but fairly abstract. I wouldn't call Frida Kahlo an abstract painter at all. She was closer, I would say she's closer to surrealist than abstract. Basquiat, there were few artists in New York at the time, very young, that were changing the way people saw art from being in galleries exclusively to something that you saw on the street. And there's a whole genre of street artists that have developed since then. Banksy is the perfect example of somebody who's active now. But at the time, there was Basquiat himself. Keith Haring is the other great artist from New York at that period. And I would describe Basquiat's work as primitive expressionism. And then, of course, Frida Kahlo's would be more of a symbolic portraiture. Okay. Her most famous paintings are probably her self-portraits with monkeys. Okay. Whereas Keith Haring's most famous work would be, well, he did a whole bunch of Untitles. I think of Untitled 86 as probably really exemplary of what he was doing. Their influences also are different. Picasso was very influential on the progression of traditional Western art. I think that Frida Kahlo, her influence is probably minimal. I don't think of anybody doing work similar to hers. And then with Basquiat, it really remains to be seen what his influence will be. There are people that work similarly or gain inspiration from him. Yeah. But as far as like the canon of Western art, I'm not sure what his legacy is going to be.
Right, because you say his work is primitive art, and then you say Frida
Primitive
Kahlo.
impressionism. Yeah,
Excuse me. Yeah, what for a lot of listeners, they don't even know what that means. If you could give a quick breakdown of what that means, trust me, they don't know.
okay. Impressionism is looking at the world and painting not necessarily realistically, but your impression, the feeling you get, the essence of what you're seeing. And that moved through into Cubism and a lot of the other styles of Western art in Paris in the early 20th century. Expressionism, there was abstract, and I have to go back for a moment and say that Impressionism led to like Cubism and ways of breaking up space to see things in a different way. Lots of Picasso's work, for example, you'll have an eye sideways and a nose straight ahead, right, and show it's a face, a lot about it, but that doesn't exist in the real world, per se. Frida Kahlo's work, symbolic, it uses her open heart on her chest, connected by veins to another portrait of herself with another heart that's in a different condition. Sort of storytelling through symbolism. Basquiat used primitive technique, but expressionism in the sense that what he's painting. It's not abstract expressionism. Abstract expressionism is just paint on a surface, not trying to represent the real world at all, but rather using the medium as the message, to paraphrase Michael McEwen, or not McEwen, what is his name? Message. Oh, that's going to drive me crazy.
You can always Google it. That's what I do all the time.
Well, while I'm talking, Google, the medium is the message.
Right.
And so that was what abstract expressionism was avoiding the real world to say we're exploring space within this realm, whether it be sculpture, or painting, or drawing.
Right. That's interesting, because I think you just gave me a crash course, because for the longest in my life, I never asked you this when I was in school because it never came up. We were too busy trying to learn how to use Illustrator and how to draw properly and make sure that all the dots were connected. And you just gave Cubism, Surrealism. I'm like, okay, this now actually makes sense. So when somebody's talking, I'm just like, huh? Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because for me, I'm an animator. Tactile design is what my universe is. Like, create superheroes, make them as realistic as possible, and go. And those things, from whether it's Pablo Picasso or Jean Basquiat or Frida, they do have something to do with what I do.
Marshall McLuhan.
Oh, cool.
Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that each one of the, well, you said the biggest influence is because I'm gonna let you keep going because you have a lot of thoughts, so you got to say, but do you think that you said that Pablo Picasso has the biggest influence, which I agree with. Jean Basquiat, for a guy like me, he has influence on me, not so much in the artistic sense, but it's more of what I can create. It's where his influence lies on me. Like, these are the possibilities. Because when he was growing up, I watched this thing called Boom for Real on Hulu, and there was a story about him. And I was like, holy crap, this dude would create arts of pieces in his apartment. And next thing you know, hey, 10,000 for the best bidder. I'm like, what? You can do that? And so what he allowed me to do is become a businessman. Because I really didn't know how to be a businessman as an artist. And when I saw that video, prior to it though, but watching that kind of sort of, I want to say, confirmed my thoughts of how you should be as an artist. Because for artists, you know this better than most. It's very hard for us. For a lot of y'all don't understand. You think we just sit there and get money? No, we might spend 10 years to make what a tech guy making 5 minutes. You know, that's, and because our art is art. I've always said this, and some disagree, some don't, but I feel like art is not appreciated. Like we, the artists ourselves, I'm talking about the creators, yourself, myself, Basquiat, Picasso. Our stuff isn't valued. Like everybody wants to put it up on their wall, but nobody wants to give us the funds that we've earned. You know, like let's say if we say Mr. White charges $500 an hour. Well, everybody wants to pay Mr. White $50 an hour, and they go sell a painting for like $5 million. Hell no, we're not going for that. I remember the one thing you taught me in school was when you set a price, the minute that person in front of you starts talking about, well, this is what I can pay, you said to say, get the F out of my face. And I've been doing that ever since. So for all y'all that want to know where I get my sense of direction, business acronym, you're looking at the man right there, Mr. White.
That explains why I paid $90 for a kid's t-shirt.
Yeah, well, you taught me. I'm learning from the best, you know. So
when I invoice you on this, just remember that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm gonna let you go.
I'm only halfway joking on that.
No. It's, you know, I honestly, man, once I get to where I want to be one day, and I think I've told you this, but sir, one of my characters in my Cardiac Assassin universe, I based it on you. You're in the Cardiac Assassin universe because I felt like you're so instrumental in where I am, and so I can't thank you enough. You don't understand. When I went to Long Beach City College, I go into Mr. White's office and I say, Mr. White, my name is so. And I said, Mr. White, I went to school, I've graduated, but I still don't know what I'm doing. and you started laughing. You said, all right, son. Well, in my class, I welcome all comers, but the one thing I want is dedication and discipline and consistency. I said, no problem, sir. And I remember you telling me, Adewale, you're going to need some work. I'm going to just stay after class 2 hours every time. And I did. I did exactly what he asked. So I'm going to let you go back to describing these three amazing artists, sir.
Let me think about what I've covered so far. You know,
get some more notes myself.
Pablo Picasso, his focus was on the canon, on the tradition of Western art and its evolution and changing art. I hate to use the term art for art's sake, but that was really what he was doing, was exploring the way people see and understand the world. Probably his most socially important work, like I said, was La Guernica, which talked about fascism and the revolution in Spain at the time, and was very emotional. Yeah. Most of his work wasn't like that. Most of his work was about the work itself,
right?
Not necessarily concerned with a social cause. And with Frida Kahlo, she's married to Diego Rivera, one of the greatest muralists of the Mexican tradition, whose work was involved with social justice and the plight of the common man. And I think all of those things influenced Frida Kahlo's work. And so in that sense, she wasn't following that Western tradition, but she was doing work that spoke to the human condition. Basquiat did work that was in the Western tradition, but he wasn't educated in it formally. He spent a lot of time in the New York museums and the library learning about art in the Western tradition. But he was, like Picasso, doing the work as a means of self-expression, like Keith Haring or trying to think of somebody else at that period on the streets of New York, and none come to mind right now.
It's all right. You'll find one as we're going. You know, it's each I guess each guy, each person, each individual. I guess the way they, I guess in a way, whether they did it, whether they noticed or not, they were socially conscious in what they were doing, because each person's era, like especially Pablo Picasso's time, it was a hot mess. Spain, its citizens were getting ran over like they were dogs on the street, and so he felt like his I remember he created an art piece that he said was not allowed to come back to Spain till there was no longer fascism. Because I remember reading about that, and it went to New York.
I think that was La Guernica.
Yeah, La Guernica, and his lawyer had to draw up documentations that even after Pablo Picasso had died, that it would still not come back to America, come back to Spain till it came to an end. So a lot of he's seen as a I don't know, I don't want to say that a god, but he's beyond legendary. Like legend is such a minute word for that dude.
You know, I'm not an art historian.
Right.
I've had a few art history classes.
Right.
But I remember going to the Picasso Museum, and it's the first time, it's the only time I remember, but it was the first time that looking at a piece of work brought tears to my eyes. I mean, it was that overwhelming. And I came back and I was visiting with a friend of mine, art historian from Long Beach, Dr. Carol Romer. And I was talking about Picasso in terms of the 20th century. And I said, you know, I really didn't appreciate Picasso earlier as much as I do now. And I said, you know, I think he probably is the greatest artist of the 20th century. And Carol said to me, "You're limiting it to the 20th century?" Meaning that he could very well be the greatest artist ever. And, you know, she's got a PhD in art history.
Right.
And, you know, I hadn't thought of it, but yeah, he may be in a class all by himself.
Yeah, I mean,
I shouldn't say all by himself, but with Michelangelo, with Raphael, Rembrandt, you know, go on and on through a variety of different people, but right. He's something.
I mean, I don't know, he wrote his own, as an artist, I think one thing he didn't allow people to do to him was to tell him what to do.
Oh, no.
Hell no. If you want to be a great artist, you got to just be like, I'm doing this shit and y'all are going to like it.
He was also incredibly prolific. At the Picasso Museum in Barcelona, they've got a few rooms set up essentially chronologically. And I was looking at these paintings, you know, and it would say October 1927.
Right.
Then you look at this next one, and it's October of 1927. And you look at this next one, and it's October of 1927. And you realize that he was knocking out pieces on a daily basis, just every day. And these are great pieces, you know. It's not like he's doing 20 to find one that might work. He's doing 20, and those 20 all work. Right. You know, it's amazing.
But it was his means of, it was also, like you said before, it was also his means of income. Because you said it was his means of income. You said it was how he earned a living. So yeah. He was motivated artistically, but
it wasn't like he was doing 10 paintings to sell those 10 paintings.
There you go. Yeah, because he has to keep a roof over his head. I mean, the man's got to live somewhere.
He was doing 10 paintings because he needed to do those paintings to get them out of his system.
Yep.
And then in France, in Paris, it was a matter of taking this stack of work that you've accumulated and going to galleries and hoping that somebody will show this stuff. And you know, he struggled to get shows, but he was able to do it. And you know, you'd sell a piece and then, you know, not sell anything for a long time. Man. And then maybe somebody else will pick it up. So it was a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the fact that each one is different, because we're gonna end it. But the main thing was you gave like a, because I don't want the information already. What you've given is like, for me, honestly, I just got a history lesson. I've always been fascinated with each one of these three dudes, but you just actually gave me a specific like breakdown of each person. So I'm
definitely, so grateful. In a way to look at them.
Yes, and a way to look at them. And a better way to look at them. And more, honestly, sir, a more educated way to look at them, because you shouldn't talk about somebody's work if you really don't understand it. It just makes you look really ignorant. So it does, sir. I would have looked stupid trying to talk about something I don't know about. You know, if it was like Stan Lee, okay, I'm in that ballpark. I can talk about Stan Lee all day long, but I don't know nothing about that. I felt like get the person who knows it, and that's why I got Mr. White. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, sir, it was awesome having you on. So where can people go for the website for the surfboards? And then what are you into now? You're retired, I know. You're semi-retired. I'm gonna call it semi.
Yeah, I just my website is not built. It's like
right.
I feel like a mechanic who drives a junker. You're working on other people's stuff and you don't have time to do your own, so you just have where it's running,
right?
But, you know, you need to put some new tires on it,
right?
I have a whole bunch of sections in there that I just haven't filled out with information.
Gotcha.
But the basic structure's there, and sometime I'll get around to doing it.
Right.
Best bet if you wanted to find the surfboards, best bet is to search hashtag Larry White surfboards.
Okay.
And then you're going to come up with some images on my website. I don't have any of the surf stuff up right now. You can see my motorcycles and my old truck, the one that's sitting behind me here.
Yeah, that's right. But you also have the social media, because I know on Instagram sometimes you post videos or a picture of a board, and they can reach out to you that way too. You can communicate with Mr. White on social media.
Yeah, on Instagram, yeah, there's a lot of images of surfboards.
Right. Yes, sir. And let me see what else. Man, that's it, because I wanted to know where your stuff is. You know, every time I have you on, it's like I never want it to end, but it's got to end. All right. But Happy New Year to you, sir. I just want to say that. Let the new year bless you with great health, continued great health, more awesome surfboards, and just continued growth of anything you want to accomplish, because I can never thank you enough for how far I've gotten, man. What I have now, the footwear, the Cards of Assassins universe, the first comic book that's coming out, the animation series is going to come out. Just, you know, you always have to, a lot of people say it when they get on stages, but I've been saying this since I met you that day at Long Beach College in 2007. And I did not realize how much influence and just gratitude I'd have for you. Just what you did for me. Like, y'all don't understand. I would not be this dude without this man right here. I mean, it took me it was like I was a son. And that's how he treated me. Just, you get here, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I did it, every single thing he said. And I am right now here because he said, do this, and I did it. You know, so he's a man who wants to see his students succeed. Trust me. I've never met a professor, a teacher, an individual like this that just so badly wants to see his students shine. You know, so.
You know, and I have to say that as a teacher, that's the greatest part, is to have your students succeed and be able to see them accomplish their dreams. It's there's nothing better.
Yeah, you say it all the time, man. We have to work for what we want, but to get what we want, we have to get people that want to help us get there. So, you know, you taught me at Long Beach City College, but then there's guys like Ken Corral. There's all these other teachers from school, man, that I remember that were awesome. But Mr. White was just not only the head of the art department, but he was my teacher, and he was a mentor, and he was all around awesome. Plus, he listened to cool music too. He listen to cool music too. So y'all better know something. So, Mr. White, it was awesome having you on. Thank you so much for being here, sir. And it was great seeing you again, sir. Have a great day and a great week.
Take care.
Yes, sir. You take care, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, y'all. So that concludes our show. We want to thank Mr. White for being on. But before we get up out of here, we want to pay some of these awesome bills. This A4 Capital Consulting podcast is brought to you by, this podcast is brought to you by A4 Capital Consulting. I'm so excited. I'm growing good business anywhere and everywhere. And A4 Capital Consulting, take your business to the next level. That's A4 CapitalConsulting.com for details, y'all. That's A4 CapitalConsulting.com for details, y'all. And this podcast is also brought to you by Anadel Foot and Ankle. Don't live with foot pain, let Anadel Foot and Ankle make your feet happy again. That's AnadelCenter.com for details, y'all. That's AnadelCenter.com for details, y'all. And as always, y'all, before we get up out of here, we're going to talk about some gear. The Batas One, the OGs, what started the whole Batas footwear line. So get your pair today on SavvyVision.com. You know what I'm saying? That's the Cardiac Assassins Batas One right there. And of course, we got the Blade Batas One. You know what I'm saying? As you can see, the art's different on both sides. You know what I'm saying? So get your Blade Batas One today on SavvyVision.com. So y'all, before we finally conclude this joker, the Cardiac Assassins bio book, because the first official Cardiac Assassins comic book is coming out. It's going to be fire. So I'm saying, so get your copy of this bio book today on SavvyVision.com so you can understand the characters in the Cardiac Assassins universe. So y'all, I want to thank y'all for listening. You know what I'm saying? We want to thank Mr. Larry White for being on the show because he's always awesome as always. And this podcast is produced, written, and directed by yours truly, Adewale Agboke. Please check out our website at SavvyVision.com to check out all our cool, awesome products like the beanie, the sweater I got on, you know what I'm saying? And please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen, whether it's Amazon, Deezer, Spotify, Apple. And you can also listen to our podcast on SavvyVision.com. And please check out our social media platforms at Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all at Sound is Vision. You got to get your social media on, y'all. That's how it works in us. And please don't forget to review us, rate us, give us a 5-star, don't be a hater. And as always, y'all, continue to aspire and achieve. Have a great week. Stay safe, y'all. Peace.